What is going on, you guys? Big news today, Star Wars Resistance. It's a new show. They just officially confirmed it, and we're going to talk all about this as much as we know right now. So before I get started, I do want to remind everybody there is another round of the giveaway going on right now, so you can enter to win a gaming expansion of your choice in the form of a $20 Cool Stuff gift card. The only thing it takes to enter that is to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. So it's pretty simple. But yes, Resistance. So we were talking about it a while ago. I've mentioned it briefly here and there, but it was nothing confirmed. They had, I guess, trademarked the name a while back, so everybody was like, oh, there's probably another show coming called Star Wars Resistance, and we all expected it would be like Rebels, but before Episode 7, so like a sequel timeline, Rebels, and sure enough, yeah, that's what it looks like. So here's what we know. We got a new looking X-Wing here on the logo, so that's kind of interesting. It looks like it's, kind of like a T-70, but it might be something else. But the animation style is different, so it's always hard to tell. It's an anime-styled animation style. So that's the main inspiration. That doesn't mean it's strictly anime. I think technically, since it's being made in the United States, I don't think they can call it anime, but I'm not an expert on anime, so, I watch Dragon Ball Z, and that's about it. So this new animation style, this new looking X-Wing has a different front apparatus, which is interesting, and I think that's probably, going to lead to a lot of people saying, well, they're just trying to sell new toys, and a lot of people spouting vitriol at Disney for trying to sell new toys. And before you do that, honestly, if you don't want the new toy, just don't buy it, okay? I like new toys all the time. A lot of people like new toys. I'm all in favor of them selling new toys, because if I don't like it, I can just ignore it. But when there are cool toys, I'm so happy to get them. So happy to get, I still want them to make lightsaber nunchuck toys, but again, I don't have lightsaber nunchucks yet. So let's talk more about Star Wars Resistance. When is this movie taking place? So it's going to be taking place before Episode 7. In the sequel timeline, it's going to include characters that we're familiar with as well as new characters. It's going to, we don't know how far before Episode 7. We do know that it's going to feature characters like BB-8, Poe, and Captain Phasma. Now, the cool thing about with it being Poe and Phasma is that both Oscar Isaacs and Gwendolyn Christie have signed up to voice their characters in this show. We don't know how much they're going to be featured, whether they'll be just recurring characters or whether they'll be like main characters. I don't think Gwendolyn Christie and Oscar Isaacs are going to, tie in to be like permanent non-stop characters, but I do think they'll be kind of like how Lando was in Star Wars Rebels, like showing up occasionally. And I think that's great. That's all you need. You don't want I don't know if I really want this new show to like deal with like characters we already know about like in every episode. I'd rather them be in there to like tie into bigger story arcs here and there. So, and this is also going to be brought to us by Dave Filoni and the team that brought us Rebels and Clone Wars. So that's really, really good. I think that's probably the best thing about this, because any of us who are fans of Rebels and the Clone Wars are going to really, really like this. And for everybody who's jaded right now when it comes to the sequel trilogy, I think this is going to be something to get you maybe potentially back on board with your Star Wars fandom. Of course, if you'd have to want that. But a lot of people are kind of on the fence right now and don't know how to feel about the future. So I think this is a bright light and something that can bring a lot of fans into the sequel timeline, because I'm pretty sure that this is going to be done right. Dave Filoni has proven himself as a visionary for Star Wars, and he's proven to handle it pretty well. So, and he's got good people on his team, so I'm not worried about that at all. So I'm excited about it just because he's involved with it. So we've got a bunch of different voice actors signing up for this. Some I'm familiar with, some I'm not. Christopher Sean, Susie McGrath, Scott Lawrence, Mirna Velasco, Josh Brenner, Donald Faison from Scrubs, who I'm a big fan of, Bobby Moynihan from SNL and now in DuckTales, Jim Rash, and Rachel Butera. So it looks like Christopher Sean might be the lead, because the main character is supposed to be a character named Kazuda Ziono, and it sounds like an Asian name, and so if it's Christopher Sean, then it might, then it might be a male lead, although we don't know for sure if it's a male or female lead. I think as far as like they've had so many female leads lately, it's about it seems like it would be about appropriate to have a male lead come back in now. But then again, I'm not sure, and I don't know. They've kind of been doing a good amount of both. Like Rebels had male, the original stuff always had male leads. Clone Wars had male leads. Rebels had male leads, and then then the movies have had all female leads. So who knows? But regardless of whoever's the lead, Kazuda Ziono is probably going to be an Asian character. At least that's what it sounds like. It's Kazuda. Just it sounds that way, but then again, could be an alien. You know, yeah, and it would actually, that would be more interesting to have an alien lead, because typically, you know, your leads are more or less human. So that's interesting. So there's a lot of different predictions we can kind of make about what shapes this show is going to take and different things. One prediction I have is Leia, right? The earliest they could go back is like the Bloodlines, is like kind of when the Resistance was formed. So I imagine it's going to take place after the Bloodlines book. You know, in between there and episode 7, you have a couple of years there. Not a whole lot of time, but I think you probably have about 6 or 7 years and maybe 10 years in between that time frame. Somebody probably knows a lot better than I do. I'm saying this off the top of my head. But I expect Leia will show up a lot. If it's the Resistance, she's the general, so she has to be in it at some point. And obviously, you know, they'll have somebody voice her. They usually, you know, find pretty good voice actors to mimic, you know, those characters. And the Leia they had in Star Wars Rebels was decent. I don't think it'll be the same character because you're doing a much older Leia at this point. So, but if they do have Leia, and I imagine she'll be in more than just one episode, you know, kind of maybe like how Vader was in Star Wars Rebels in a couple, or Mon Mothma in Rebels, for example. You know, she'll have to show up. I wonder if they'll give an opportunity for Leia to demonstrate her knowledge of the Force, kind of setting up some of the stuff for episode 8. That would be interesting. But they may not. It may not be appropriate. I think they would only do that if there was a good reason for it. Like Dave Filoni doesn't want to do stuff just for the sake of a fan service. He wants to do it because it's germane to the story. So, you know, and that's one of the big problems people had with certain other things, is they want stuff that's, you know, well developed and you know, things that make sense and things that serve the purpose and serve the plot. So if, you know, I can't see, you know, at least right now, if Leia's just going to be in a Mon Mothma context, I don't see that happening. But then again, it all depends on how it ends up evolving, if they're going to do that with Leia or not. New ships. There is, you know, so we see like a new looking X-Wing. We don't know. I don't know if that's going to be like a T-85 or a different type of X-Wing, or if it's just going to be a modification. You know, who knows? But that's in, or maybe it's some type of, like a different type of headhunter. You know, we don't know. There's a whole lot we don't know, though I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be an X-Wing. But there's also, you know, are we going to see other new capital ships? You know, this is early enough that we could potentially see a Starhawk. The Old Republic is still, you know, alive and well, and so there's a whole lot of New Republic ships that, you know, that are potential to be in this movie, or this series. So a lot of ship potential. Really liking that. I really want to see a Starhawk finally, and maybe this is one reason they haven't shown it yet, because they want people to be like, hey, let's go tune in to see the Starhawk. And if you're not familiar with a Starhawk is a book, a ship that was built in the Aftermath series of books, and it was the first, you know, new style ship that the New Republic had built. So I would expect that there are some Starhawks in the, you know, in this series. Now, what timeline are we talking here? All right, we know it takes place before episode 7, but does that mean it can only be before episode 7? Does this mean that like all of the seasons of this show need to lead up to setting up the beginning of episode 7? I don't think it has to do that at all. I think this is a show that can go well past episode 7. I think this is a show that can go, you know, take us all the way past episode 8 and begin, you know, in future seasons to start leading us up to episode 9. If it's successful and has multiple seasons, then, you know, there's no reason why it can't start filling in the time between episodes 8 and 9. Episode 9 will probably be out before the 3rd season of this comes out, so, you know, like there's no reason why it can't start to fill in that stuff. And that's actually pretty cool. The timing of this is all really allows them to go in a lot of different places. It can even eventually go past episode 9, although I'm not sure if it will. We still don't know how much time is going to be placed in between episodes 8 and episodes 9. So that's, you know, that really does leave a lot of room for them to play with. And I have a feeling that episode 9 is going to kind of wrap things up altogether. So I think if this show has its series finale, it may be very close to episode 9, either setting things up for episode 9 or dealing with the aftermath from a different point of view of what happens in episode 9, assuming there's some kind of triumphant victory or something like that. So that much is kind of cool, and you know, we really don't know yet about the timeline, but I predict that that will happen. I also predict that they can totally explore Snoke's backstory here. In some of the books, they've talked about the original leaders of the First Order. In other words, Snoke was not an original leader of the First Order. If you've read the Aftermath series, you know it was people like Brendel Hux and Ray Sloan were some of the founding members of the First Order. Ray Sloan is mentioned in some other, in lots of different books, but I really am hoping they do deal with Snoke's order, Snoke's, rise to power and how he takes over the First Order. It may not necessarily talk too much about his backstory, but I think it'll be a little bit about his backstory in there. But mostly, I really want to see more of Ray Sloan, and that's a character I've just really enjoyed in all of her books that she's been in. She's a good Imperial. She's not an evil person. She's a good Imperial officer who is, like maybe lawful evil or lawful neutral maybe. She's just a good character who's not all about the abuses of power and being cruel to others. She's more of a law and order type of character who happens to be on the side of the Empire, and she's just a good character. She's like one of those villains you would almost root for. And so I hope they if they put Ray Sloan in here, I'm almost hoping they treat her in a similar context as Thrawn, right? As opposed to like a Governor Price who's like a jerk. Ray Sloan is more of like the respectable villain, right? And not even villain in some cases. In some cases, she was kind of like the anti-hero, or like your Deadpool or something. Well, no, Deadpool's a terrible example. But basically somebody who's, not squeaky clean and super righteous and good, but somebody you can respect. And so I really like Ray Sloan. I love the character. She's deep, she's complex. And there's a whole bunch of new stuff that you can really deal with her character when you get into this chapter of her life that is the First Order. So I'm really excited to see that and all of the things they do with this show. But I want to hear what you guys think. Are you anxious for this? It's supposed to come out this fall. Are you, are you just done with Star Wars now? You don't want any more animation, or are you like if you were a fan of Clone Wars and Rebels? How do you feel about this? I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to click subscribe and click that bell for alerts to join the notification squad. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.